Hello again, I am Blunty. Now, over on one of my side gigs producing a web show for digidirector.com.au, I just finally got a chance to go hands-on and fully test out the GoPro Hero3 Black Edition. And just on the off chance you are somehow unfamiliar with what a GoPro is, it is the king of the hill of the action cameras, but it is not unchallenged these days. It is far from being alone in the market. There are more and more competing products out there, and just about all of them are cheaper. But there is always, and I mean always, one question that always has to be asked when looking at these GoPro alternative cameras, and that is,
well, so that looks fantastic, but how well does it compare to the GoPro?
so let's just cut to the chase. Let's take GoPro's King of the Hill, its top tier GoPro Hero3 Black Edition, and put it up against one of its competitors. So let's go ahead and put them head to head in a shot-for-shot shootout video and see who comes out on top. Anyway, just before we get to the shot-for-shot comparison footage, let's get a bit more familiar with the competition. I've got here the iON Air Pro. It's built like a brick shithouse with a full-on metal body. It's watertight as is down to 10 meters, so unlike the GoPro, it doesn't need a separate watertight case in order for it to get damp or shield it from dust or dirt or debris, which also means the audio is less muffled, by the way. A naked GoPro feels positively fragile by comparison. It's got a dead nifty vibrational feedback feature, so you can feel exactly what's going on with the camera without having to even look at it and wait for the blinking light or squint at the GoPro's miserable little LCD. And yes, you can even slap on a Wi-Fi module to get full-on control of your settings from an app on your phone. You can fiddle with all your settings, you can start and stop recording, you get a live feed, which is much faster than the GoPro's live feed, by the way, being quite close to real time, while the GoPro lags quite a lot. It's got an orientation sensor, so it flips the video automatically if you need to mount it upside down, instead of having to remember to set the option buried in a menu like you do on the GoPro. Its video feature set is much more limited than the Hero3 Black. You've got a much reduced selection of resolutions and frame rates, but it still does the important ones: 1080p, 960p at 30 frames per second, and 720 at either 30p or 60p. And of course it also does still photos and has a time-lapse functionality built into it too. So, lacking the very high frame rate capabilities or the limited but cool 4K video resolution trick of the GoPro, the iON is less fancy than the Hero3 Black. No question of it. But let's face it, while the Hero3 Black is feature-rich and standing upon the success of its forebears and is already proving itself to have great image quality, for those who just need an ultra-tough action cam to get the damn job done, for those who don't need all the other bells and whistles, there's plenty of value in the iON, and there's plenty of money to be saved. But only if the image quality comes up to par, because it's the end result that matters most. So let's get to it. Let's put them head to head and see just how well the underdog iON counterpunches the Hero3 Black. So, first up, dawn lighting. Pretty even match when it comes to noise levels. Neither are fantastic, but the GoPro has a bit more reach into the shadows, while the iON's white balance and color tone is a bit smarter, pulling in the blue sky here and warm tone of the sunrise, and generally looking less washed out than the GoPro. But the GoPro does this by design, giving it a bit more flexibility for those wanting to fiddle with color correction in the edit. But the iON does look richer and more dramatic right off the memory card. But back in the twilight of the pre-dawn before that glorious sunrise happened, both cameras had issues with high levels of pretty ugly noise. But surprisingly, the iON is actually noticeably sharper, possibly because it's not having to look through the plastic protective case that the GoPro has to hide in if you want to keep it protected, or actually mount it to anything at all. But again, the wider dynamic range of the GoPro gives it an edge in capturing detail in the shadows and murky places. It's also quite obviously less prone to vibration, such as my footsteps here. It should be noted at this point that in the side-by-side shootouts, both cameras are mounted solidly to the exact same rig, so they're receiving precisely the same amount of vibration, jostling and movement at all times. Both cameras are also set to their widest perspective setting, and here's a good example that shows just how much wider the GoPro is. But along with that comes more barreling and distortion, so it's not necessarily a win for either side there. Again, we can see the iON's picture profile delivers a richer image, while the GoPro's flatter picture profile looks less punchy and more washed out. This also helps make the iON's image look sharper, but once more, it pays the price by crushing out the detail in the shadows. Those steps, for example, have lost all definition. The iON also tends to lean on the warm side of white balance, while the GoPro steps to the other side, having a tendency to slip into the cooler side of what would be a true neutral white balance, especially in artificial lighting. It really is a trade-off. The GoPro's image looks a bit dull off the card, so it'll cost you more time in the editing process, color correcting it properly, but on the same point, it gives you far more latitude and control over the image in that grading process. So it's a time versus control trade-off. For many users, especially those outside of sophisticated productions like TV or documentary work, I'd expect many people may very well be absolutely fine with slotting the rich, punchy footage from the iON right into their projects, leaving it pretty much untouched, and save themselves a whole bunch of high-skill and time-intensive grading work, and the CPU processing time that comes along with it. Now when it comes to underwater work, the GoPro Hero 3 can go much deeper with its standard case approved for up to 60 meters diving, while the naked but watertight iON will go for 10 meters without issue. If you surf, swim, jet ski or snorkel, you're going to be safe with either, quite frankly, but it's the scuba-strapped deep divers who want the extra reach of the GoPro. Clarity underwater though, well, the GoPro has an unmistakable edge, while the iON becomes quite soft indeed. So even the shallow diving schnorkelers may still want the GoPro here. Strapped to a bike on crappy Sydney roads lets us see just how well they deal with nasty transferred vibration, and while neither is especially smooth, it's clear the iON has a rougher time of it. This is also a good opportunity to compare the flare from bright light sources like the Aussie sun here too. I think the iON's, while perhaps more obvious, is a more attractive looking flare, while the GoPro tends to wash out just a little bit. And wait for it, in just a moment, bam, there's another well-known issue with the GoPro right there. And it affects any generation of the product, in fact. Its mounting system is a little bit prone to getting knocked about, either by vibration, as in this example, or indeed being knocked directly, while the iON has a standard tripod mount cut directly into its metal body, providing a significantly more secure mounting point. So it stayed put while I was forced to pull over and reset the GoPro's mount, which had flipped up to look at the sky instead of the road. You may also notice that the high-frequency vibration of my now idling engine is inducing a bit of wobbly jello effect in the iON. This is a very ugly issue, but this was the one and only time I ever saw it during my testing, so it's an extreme edge case issue unlikely to be a problem for most people. Even in stills mode, it's a tit-for-tat battle going on. Pretty much all the same results as video, except the iON is noticeably sharper. And this time it's not mostly because of that extra contrast. It really is genuinely sharper and more detailed rich, which is interesting. So, who comes out on top? Well, it's honestly 6 of one, half dozen of the other. It's a closer match than I was expecting. Neither is a clear winner, and both have their own list of pros and cons. So I'll be leaving it up to you folks to make your call in the comments section. All I can say for sure is that either choice is money well spent, and the iON Air Pro underdog put up a heck of a fight against the much praised and highly regarded GoPro Hero 3 Black. Well, that, I think I'm safe in saying, is a very interesting result indeed. The iON Air Pro versus the GoPro Hero 3 Black Edition, and interesting result. Let me know what you thought in the comments section, but that's it for me. Thanks for watching. I am Blunty, and I will catch you next time.